Welcome back, everybody. We are going to be working with ratios and proportional relationships for our 7th grade class. So let's start taking a quick look at the overall thing. It looks like I already see graphs. I see a bunch of calculators. Wow, since the beginning. So I think we're going to be able to use a calculator the whole way through. Awesome. Going back to 7th grade, proportional relationships in graphs specifically, hopefully by now it should be ingrained in your heads, okay? It always looks the same, okay, which is so awesome, okay, for 7th grade, because if they start talking about proportional and it doesn't look the same, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit, especially in number 12 versus all the ones in number 11, hint, hint, then it's probably wrong, okay? So we got tables to work with, and that's it. Only 13 questions, not too horrible. Looks like a lot of word problems, but hopefully it's not that bad, especially since we're going to be just dealing with them in ratios. So I guess I'm going to show you how I usually tackle ratios, because everybody does it a little different. Okay, I might show you one or two different ways, and then I'll just kind of stick to the one I think is helpful for most of, at least my students over here. Okay. All right, so let's move on, or I should say get started. So Bianca's hungry and wants to order food and have it delivered to her. She will order the same thing, but has three options given below. Okay, so Uber Eats, Grubhub, or Pick It Up. So which option would be the least expensive for Bianca? So it looks like I already got 1625 to compare, and I would have said, well, gas and driving. No, I'm not. I guess they're not including that. So let's see. Calculator's gonna be super helpful with this because a lot of this looks like I just gotta multiply and add stuff. So let's do one thing at a time. Let's organize our information here. So let's see for Uber, what are we dealing with? The food costs $14.86, but you get $2 off. So if you subtract $2, what do you get? And again, calculator is gonna be awesome here. It's gonna make my life a whole lot easier. So Uber, clear that. 14, and I gotta just make sure I type it in correctly. 14.86 minus $2. So now it's 12.86. Okay, so I got that. I got $2 off. Excuse me. But here's the issue with Uber Eats, you got a plus, right? And your plus is going to be your fees. So this fee for your order is going to be $4.54. So let's take the $12.86 and add the $4.54. Nope, see, we're going to be careful, 4.54. And now my total was $17.40. And let's go to the next one. Let's see with Grubhub. Well, the food is going to cost $18.22 and it's 30% off. Okay. So 30%. But I got to subtract it. Okay, so I'll do that after. So let's see. I got 18.22 times 30%. And that's where you're like, what the heck is that? Why did it do that? It shouldn't have done it. I don't know if your calculator is going to do it. This is basically making me go backwards. Okay. So I'm going to say 30% of 18.22. So let me erase the first part. And in this case, I got $5.46, 4.466. But here's the issue. That is the discount. So I got to go down to 822 minus 5.466. So let's see. 18.22 minus 5.466. So now what I'm going to pay is $12.75 and a 4. Okay, and I'm just going to 3 decimal places, not that bad. I'll just leave it. But my extra fees, now I'm going to add $4.59. So now I'm going to take that answer of 12.754 and I'm going to add 4.59 and that's going to give me 17.34. So Grubhub is 17.34. So which one's the best option? Well, that was really close. I didn't think it was going to be that close. So it would be better just go pick it up, I guess. Okay, it's cheaper that way. And honestly, that's usually the case. I only buy Uber Eats when I got a good coupon. To be honest, and it's like a total. And in the end, I look at the prices and I'm like, I would have just paid almost the same if I had just gone in. But I guess it's convenient. So, anyways, moving on. You don't care. Moving on. All right. Ethan had a 20-ounce drink with him and chugged 12 ounces in one go. Wow, that's like more than half. Enter the percentage of ounces Ethan has left. Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. All right. So, this is my way of thinking, right? So, Ethan has a 20-ounce drink. So, there's 20 ounces. So, he chugged 12 ounces. Enter the percent he has left. So, if you take away the 12, there is 8 ounces left. So, in other words, he has 8 ounces out of 20 ounces. And I have a calculator. So 8 out of, aka divide by 20, is 0.4. So enter the percentage though, because if that's 0.4 if that's 0.4 as a decimal, to get it to a percent, you have to multiply times 100. So if I take 0.4 and I multiply times 100, I get 40%. And that should make sense, right? Because I told you earlier, 12% was more than half. So if he drank more than half, he should have less than half, right? Less than half, 40% left over. Okay. When making oatmeal, Victor likes to use a ratio of 1/3 cups. Okay, so ratios. So 1/3 cups. That's gross. That's better. Cups of raisins for every 2.5 cups of oatmeal. Enter the number of cups of oatmeal Victor will make if he uses 1 cup of raisins. So here's the deal. This is why I like to set up this way. So in this case, we know that 1/3 cup of raisins gives me 2.5 cups of oatmeal. So if I have 1/3, how did I get to 1 whole cup? Well, that's 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. That gives me 3/3, which equals 1. So how many did I need to do? I needed to have 3 of those. So to go from 1/3 to 1, I had to multiply times 3. Well, guess what? If I do that to the raisins, I'm going to have to do that to the oatmeal. So you could have said, oh, if there's 3 of these, well, I can just say 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 2.5, right? But again, that's just 2.5 times 3. So let's see, 2.5 times 3, and that gives me 7.5 or 7.5 cups of oatmeal. All right, number 4. Rebecca goes to the mall and purchases a shirt for $17.50 plus a sales tax of 8% at one store. Then she goes to another store and buys some accessories, totaling $26.40 plus 8% sales tax. Enter the total number in dollars that Rebecca spent at the mall. Well, here's the thing, right? The percent was the same for the sales tax. So technically, if she had bought at the same store, right, the sales tax is the same. If you go to the mall, it depends on the city that you're in, right? So I'm just going to say these two are combined. So I'm going to take 17.50 and I'm going to add the 26.42. And when I do that, that's going to give me a total of 43.92. But here's the thing. I need to figure out 8% of, and you see why I'm doing this because of the calculator here, of my total. So that is my total, right? That I had spent on a shirt and on the accessories. So now I can say 8% of 43, nope, 43, okay, 0.92 is going to give me 3.5136. So if this is going to be my tax, I have to take my total and then I have to add the tax to it. So now I'm going to take 43.92 and I'm going to add 3.5136. And it says that my total is 47.4336. Now, did it tell me to round? It did not tell me to round. So here's the kicker. If it does round, you can text as your answer. Just to be safe, if I'm being honest, I usually do that as a student. Or I have a feeling because it's a decimal. Again, I made this up, so I probably forgot to write that in. Or I assume maybe it was going to be a whole number for some reason, or only one or two decimal places. Mine was 4. So usually, especially if it's money. So if my third decimal is lower than, I'm just going to leave 47. Alrighty. The graph below shows a proportional. So it literally told this shows a proportional relationship. So what do I know about this? I told you at the beginning. If this is in your y, your graph to any proportion at the origin, this goes up to the right. It is a straight line that starts at 0, 0. Okay. Anyways, select true or false for each shown below. So this is about the amount of hours and the number of shirts made. Okay, so the total number of shirts made in 1 hour, and all it is reading it. So here's 1 hour. It's 45. So I'm going to go up, and that is 45. Yes, it is. The total number of shirts made in 5 hours, so 5 hours, is 150. Oh, wait, but this is already 150. Is that true? No. Okay, it's way up here somewhere. All right, even higher actually. And then finally, E represents the total number of shirts made in 2 hours. So there's my 2 hours. E represents that many shirts. Yes, it does. Okay. So I think that's just a quick little mini lesson, hint, hint, right? That is your unit rate. Okay. Unit rate. We've seen the other videos, right? We've done a lot of equations. That's where you find it on the graph. How much does it take for 1 hour? All right. Okay, moving on. So the table below shows a proportional relationship. So now how does it look on the table? Find the constant of proportionality, aka your R. Didn't you just hear me earlier? That is your unit rate. Okay. Use the value of R to enter equation in the formula or in the form y equals Rx. This is your favorite equation of all time in 7th grade, guys. Okay, this one's it. And all that really matters is that is your multiplier. So they call it your constant of proportionality, yes. I can call it your unit rate, yes. And I also call it the multiplier. Why? Because you are multiplying x times r to get y. So here's my x. I need to multiply times r, and I'm going to get y. So 0 times what equals 0? Anything. What times what equals 4? So 1 times 4. What about this one? 2 times 4. Yeah, that works out. 3 times 4. So in other words, I took this number, right, which happens to be my x. I multiplied by 4, and I got y. So if I do it in that order, that's how I want you to see it on the table, okay? It's either left to right or vertical or horizontal, like it doesn't matter. It's just, you have to go in the direction, right? So this thing just told me to write it the other way. So it told me to leave the y first, and then the x is there, so can you guess what the 4 is? The 4 is your r. So that's 4x, so I can just write it as y equals 4x. Now, why did I say it's also your unit rate? Because, actually, I shouldn't have done it in blue. I should have done it in red, because where x equals 1, my output was 4, okay? Just like this one, if x equals 1, then my y was 45. That's my output for every 1, okay? All right, anyways, just thought I'd throw it out there in case we see it again, and that way I'm done with the little mini lesson. All right, your grandma is making cheese tamales, delicious, for your birthday. Hopefully there's a piece of chile in there, okay? You gotta flavor it up a little bit. She has 4 bags of maseca, okay? So that's just flour, basically, okay? That weigh a total of 16 pounds. And 3 large bags of cheese that weigh 6 pounds. Assuming that all bags of maseca weigh the same and each bag of cheese weighs the same, what is the ratio, that means it's the colon, right, of each bag of maseca to a bag of cheese? So in other words, they want 1 bag of maseca and 1 bag of cheese. How much does each one weigh? So we're going to take the first ratios. So I got 4 bags of maseca that weigh a total of 16 pounds. So in other words, how much does 1 bag of maseca? So how did I get from 4 to 1? I divided by 4. So if I do it to one side, I'll do it to the other. So 1 bag of maseca should weigh 4 pounds. Does that make sense? Hopefully you realize it does, right? Okay, so I just had to divide basically. So let's do the other one. Excuse me. So if I have 3 large bags of cheese and they weigh 6 pounds, how much does 1 bag of cheese weigh? Well, to get to 1, I had to divide by 3. So I'm going to divide this by 3 as well, and I get 2. So 1 bag of cheese is 2 pounds. So yeah, 2 pounds, 2 pounds, 2 pounds. Yeah, that's 3. Okay, 6. So that works out. So now that I have my 2 weights, now I can go ahead and write my ratio that they want. And if they want maseca to cheese, well, my maseca was 4, okay, 4 pounds, because it's the weight, right? And my cheese was 2. So then my ratio is 4 to 2. Okay, number 8. Your school club is selling birria burritos at school during lunch for fundraising. Okay, all this stuff is making me hungry, guys, because I'm over here after school, and I'm like, ugh, just making these videos, and I'm getting hungry now. Okay, gotta finish. The amount of money your club profits is proportional, as again, to the number of burritos they sell. The equation below shows the proportional relationship where P is the profit earned and B is the number of burritos sold. So P equals AB. Okay. Enter the amount of money he made in dollars after each burrito. Oh my God, this is so long for such an easy question. And again, you're like, well, how is this easy? Okay, let me explain. Each burrito, per burrito. Okay, gotta roll that R. So I've had a mini lesson in other videos. If you've seen it, where I told you, right? It's the same equation. Y equals RX. Can you see it? It's the same equation in 7th grade. That's your favorite equation. So a lot of the times when you see a rate, okay, so you're going to see stuff like $5 per hot dog, so you say 5H. I'm going to say $60 per video game, so you put 60B. I'm going to say $25 per jeans, so you put 25J. Okay, so it's kind of like hidden, right? Like it's per, and you just write the letter of whatever word is next to it. So can you guess what this one says? This says $8 per burrito. So So how much is each one? It's 8. Again, why is that R important? Because that is your unit rate. And your unit means 1. Okay, how much per 1? So it's all that reading to make it look so complicated, especially when they start throwing letters in you, and it was, hopefully you realize it's pretty simple. Okay, guys? So, anyways, moving on. Select the table that represents a proportional relationship. Okay, so on a graph, we know that you have to start at 0, 0. Just like all these tables, you have to start at 0, 0. So, is that 0, 0? No. Is that 0, 0? Yes, yes, and no. The other thing I got to know, so again, 0, 0, okay, and then your R has to be the same. What do we mean by R? Is your multiplier that way, 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 that way. So this was 1 times 1. This is 2 times 2, 3 times 3. Are those the same? No. This one is times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2. So that is your R, aka your multiplier, aka your unit rate. So that one is my answer. Okay. All right, you're going to put up a lemonade stand using the following recipe: sugar, water, lemon. Okay, enter the number of cups of water. So I want water that will be needed for 2 cups of lemon. So I only care about these two. So for my water, I had 2 cups of water, and I had 1/4 cups of lemon. So now what they're saying is, how much water am I going to need if I use 2 cups of lemon? So same setup, right? You see, it's the same thing I've been doing before. So in this case, I'm going to be like, how many times does 1/4 fit into 2? So times what, basically? Well, if I have a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, and I notice I stopped at 4 of them give me 1 whole, right? So if I want 2 wholes, then I need another 4. So in other words, I multiplied by 8. And if I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to the other side. So 2 waters times 8 is going to give me 16. So I need 16 cups of water if I use 2 cups of lemon. And that should make sense. That's a lot of lemon, okay, to be using. Ooh, I can only imagine the amount of sugar, because that's crazy, okay. All right, moving on. Lana is making pancakes for breakfast. The amount of water used is proportional, otra vez, to the flour mixed in the box. Excuse me. Which of the following could represent a proportional relationship between the amount of flour and the amount of water used when making her pancakes? Look at all your graphs. There's only one option. A proportional graph. There's your X, there's your Y. What did I say earlier? It has to start at the origin, and it just has to go up in a straight line. And it has to start at 0, 0. So which one of those? It's not A because it curves. It's B. And just to make sure, this one, does it start here? No. Does it start here? No. So super easy question. Again, super long to read. And all you had to remember, is it proportional? Yes or no? How does it look like? Okay. Next one, we have another proportional relationship. Boom, there it is. 0, 0, straight line. So I am happy. So between the number of candy apples sold and the amount of money earned, find the constant of proportionality, aka your unit rate, for the form, to enter an equation. So you better have an equal sign. M equals RA, where M represents the money, A represents the amount of apples. So if I have RA, that is your thing, your rate per apple. You get it? So if it's not apple, it is your money, right? So how much money per apple are you making? Well, if I want 1 apple, I just got to go up here, and it gives me how much money. Well, if that's 6, and 6 is for 2 squares, that means each one is 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And then in this case, one apple is going to be $9. So if that's 9, again, my R right here is 9. I'm going to just write it in and say M equals 9A. Ew, they look the same, huh? So there's my equation. And again, does it look like y equals rx? Yes. Okay, notice, and again, a little meaning lesson here. Normally this would be your x, but now it is a. So can you see that? Normally this would be your y, but now it is m. Can you tell? Same idea, okay? So super important, because I stress this a lot, guys, because it's something I know you guys can handle, and usually the problems are a lot easier than they look. Okay, if you just remember the same details, they're always repeating. They're always repeating the same idea. Proportional relationship, constant proportionality, R. Y equals Rx, just in a different letters. Okay, but it's the same thing. All right, moving on. So here's even more practice with tables. What do we know about tables? They have to start at 0, 0. So that one, and they suck because they all count at 0, 0. And then the other thing is your R. So in other words, multiplying. Okay, what are you multiplying by to get those? So does that work? Fractions, you guys suck. So I'm going to go backwards. So what do I mean by that? So for these, how did I find my R? Well, I could have just said to find R, I could have said y divided by x. So in other words, 8 divided by 4 equals 2. 6 divided by 3 equals 2, right? Like I just took these two, divided them. So that's what I'm going to do for these. And I'm doing this because I have a calculator. It's just patience. You cannot quit on me, okay? Like you have a calculator, so let's go ahead and use it. So how do I find the multiplier? I'm going to say 2 divided by 1/2. So 2 divided by 1, actually I don't even like that. 2 divided by a fraction, 1/2, and that gives me 4. So 3 divided by 1/3, and that gives me 9. So does that make sense? No, the R's are different, so it cannot be that one. That's a no. So let's do the next one. Again, 1/5 and 1. So my R is y over x, right? So divide those. So 1 divided by 5 equals 0.2. Divide that by 1, and I get 0.2. So times 0.2. So is that going to give me for all of that? Let's see. 2 times 0.2. Is that 0.4? You're like, wait, 0.4? So let's see. See that little fraction button? That's 2/5. So yeah, that works. What about 3 times 0.2? So 3 times 0.2. That's 0.6, which actually is 3/5. So yeah, that one works too. And that'll be 0.8. So let me see. 4 times 0.2 is 0.8, which is 4/5. So this one works out. So there's my first one, and I got 4 options. And again, if you've seen the other videos, you know if I got 4 options for a select all, I'm going to pick 2 or 3. All right, here's my next one. 6 divided by 1/2. And I'm going to remember that 1/2 is equal to 0.5. That makes it a lot nicer to type it in. So 6 divided by 0.5, and that's 12. So 1/2 times 12 equals 6, okay? So then I get 1, no. I get 1/3 times 12, and that equals 4. Yes, so that worked out. Then I get 1/4 times, no, not on the bottom, it's on the side, times 12, and that equals 3. Yes, that worked. Let's check the last one just to be careful. So I have 1/6 times 12, and that gave me 2. So that one worked out as well. So if that hadn't worked out, I would have just assumed the last one did, right? Because I had to pick 2 or 3, and I'd only have 2 as an option possible. But because it did, I have to check the last one just to see. And this one's a little weird. I already don't think it's going to work. So how do I take a half and get 1? I have to double it. So this one I have to triple it. This one I have to do times 4. That's not, no, so that did not work. So those are my only 2 options. Oh, that was it. Okay, so yeah, the last one, guys, a lot of patience, okay? You just gotta stick with it, all right? It wasn't horrible, it was just a little tedious. So as a quick recap today, graphs. What do we know about graphs? To be proportional, you start at 0, 0, and they're straight lines, okay? Same thing with your tables. You start at 0, 0, and in order for it to be a straight line, your R has to be the same, okay? So a lot of this stuff you're going to see, right? Your equation, your favorite equation is y equals rx, or m equals 2w, or x equal, you know what I mean? It's the same setup, okay? Where whatever is right here, that is your unit rate, aka multiplier, aka constant of proportionality. All right, anyways. So hopefully all these little mini lessons brought back a lot of the stuff for 7th grade, because this was heavy loaded. Okay, vocab, proportional relationship, guys, proportional relationships. All right, so until next time.